What if the first act of defiance against God was not a sin, but a cry for equality? Does the demonization of Lilith hide a deeper truth about the suppression of feminine power and the manipulation of religious narratives? For millennia, her name has been whispered in fear, a cautionary tale of female rebellion, but what if the real story has been deliberately obscured? The story of Lilith, often relegated to the shadows of religious texts, challenges the very foundations of the creation narrative we've been taught. While Adam and Eve are often presented as the sole progenitors of humanity, Lilith's story offers a compelling alternative, one where the first woman refused to submit to male dominance, choosing exile rather than obedience. This begs the question, was Lilith justified in her rebellion, or was she truly the monstrous figure depicted in folklore? Exploring this question forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the construction of religious narratives and the silencing of dissenting voices. It compels us to consider whether the traditional roles assigned to men and women are divinely ordained or the product of patriarchal agendas. To understand Lilith's place in the esoteric landscape, we must first delve into her shadowy origins, tracing her evolution from ancient Mesopotamian demoness to modern-day feminist icon. Long before the Bible, female deities and demons like Lamashtu roamed the ancient Near East, embodying the fears and anxieties surrounding childbirth and infant mortality. These figures, often associated with the night and the untamed aspects of nature, laid the groundwork for the Lilith figure that would later emerge in Jewish folklore. While the biblical Eve is often seen as the first sinner, Lilith's prior defiance challenges this perception, suggesting that the seeds of rebellion were sown long before the apple was offered. This historical context is crucial for understanding the complex symbolism and multifaceted interpretations surrounding Lilith's character. The significance of Lilith's narrative lies in its challenging the perceived divine order. By demonizing Lilith, patriarchal structures effectively suppressed alternative perspectives on creation, gender roles, and the very nature of divinity. This suppression extends beyond religious texts, influencing cultural norms and societal expectations for women throughout history. The problem, therefore, is not simply a matter of historical accuracy, but a perpetuation of power imbalances that continue to affect our world today. Consider the treatment of other powerful women in history, figures like Mary Magdalene, whose roles were diminished and reputations tarnished to fit prevailing patriarchal narratives. By understanding Lilith's story, we can begin to recognize these patterns of suppression and reclaim the lost feminine, not just as a historical exercise, but as a vital step towards a more balanced and equitable future. Thus, the erasure of Lilith from Scripture represents a deliberate attempt to suppress feminine power and alternative perspectives on creation and divine order, transforming her into a scapegoat for societal anxieties. By understanding Lilith not just as a demon, but as a rebel archetype, we challenge the very foundations of patriarchal norms, advocating for a re-evaluation of power dynamics and a recognition of the inherent value of feminine independence. So, let us begin our journey by unveiling Lilith's legacy, tracing her evolution from ancient demoness to modern-day symbol of female empowerment, analyzing the symbolism associated with her across different cultures, and exploring the reasons behind her absence from mainstream religious texts. By the end of this video, you will have a deeper understanding of Lilith's true origins, her symbolic significance, and the reasons why her narrative was suppressed. What are the true origins of Lilith, and why was she erased from Scripture? Let's find out. Lilith, the original dissenter, the first to challenge the ordained hierarchy. Her story is not merely an ancient myth. It is a timeless narrative of resistance against perceived injustice, echoing through the corridors of religious history and resonating with contemporary struggles for equality. Was Lilith a demon, a goddess, or simply an independent woman refusing to conform? Her conflicting portrayals serve as a prism through which we can examine the suppression of female figures throughout mythology and religion. But what truly constitutes a divine order, and at what point is rebellion not only justified but necessary? Consider the implications. Lilith's fate mirrors that of countless powerful women whose stories have been distorted, minimized, or altogether erased in the service of maintaining patriarchal dominance. To fully grasp the weight of Lilith's defiance, we must ask ourselves, what happens when perceived divine mandates clash with the inherent human desire for autonomy and self-determination? Framing the narrative this way compels us to consider whether her demonization was a divine decree or a calculated act of control. The central question remains, was Lilith justified in her rebellion against Adam and God? And what does her story ultimately reveal about the complexities of power, gender, and free will? To understand the nuances of Lilith's rebellion, we must journey back to the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia, where her story first took root, far predating the familiar biblical narrative. Here, Lilith emerges not as a disobedient wife, but as a formidable force of primal chaos, a dangerous nocturnal demon whose origins are shrouded in the mists of Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian texts. These ancient depictions paint a picture of Lilith that starkly contrasts with later interpretations, presenting her as a figure of fear and anxiety, embodying the untamed aspects of the night and the anxieties surrounding childbirth and infant mortality. Could these early portrayals hold the key to understanding her later demonization? Lamashtu, a fearsome female demon associated with infant mortality, disease, and a general threat to pregnant women and newborns, bears striking similarities to the later Lilith. In ancient Mesopotamian lore, Lamashtu was believed to prey on infants in their cradles, steal unborn children from the womb, and spread sickness and disease. Sound familiar? The parallels between Lamashtu and Lilith extend beyond their shared association with infant mortality. Both figures are depicted as independent, sexually aggressive, and resistant to male authority. This begs the question, was Lilith simply a later iteration of Lamashtu, her story adapted and reinterpreted by different cultures and religious traditions? What if the very concept of Lilith is a composite of many different figures? Indeed, ancient texts vividly describe Lilith as a succubus, a seductress who preys on men in their sleep, stealing their seed and giving birth to hordes of demonic offspring. This portrayal, rooted in ancient fears surrounding female sexuality and the unknown terrors of the night, paints a picture of Lilith as a dangerous and uncontrollable force. Mesopotamian cultures employed various protective measures to defend against Lilith's attacks, including amulets inscribed with protective spells and incantations designed to ward off her demonic influence. These amulets, often depicting grotesque images of Lilith and her demonic children, offer a chilling glimpse into the anxieties and fears that she embodied. But what if these attempts to control and suppress Lilith's image only served to amplify her power and mystique? Thus, Lilith's initial portrayal as a dangerous, chaotic force reflects primal fears and anxieties surrounding the untamed aspects of nature, female sexuality, and the vulnerability of human life. These early depictions lay the foundation for her later demonization in Jewish folklore, where she would become a cautionary tale about the dangers of female defiance and the importance of submission to divine authority. But here's what most people miss. The Mesopotamian view of Lilith as a chaotic force might not always be negative. Some scholars theorize that this chaotic energy, while dangerous, was also seen as a necessary part of the cosmic balance, a force that challenged the established order and prevented stagnation. So, was Lilith truly evil, or simply a misunderstood force of nature? Now, let us turn our attention to Jewish folklore, where Lilith's story evolved as it was transmitted through oral tradition and eventually found its way into texts like the alphabet of Ben Sira. This medieval Jewish text, a collection of folktales and anecdotes, provides one of the most detailed and influential accounts of Lilith's conflict with Adam and her subsequent demonization. The story presented in the alphabet of Ben Sira is a radical departure from the Genesis account, offering an alternative creation narrative in which Lilith demands equality with Adam, refusing to submit to his authority and ultimately choosing exile over obedience. According to the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith was created in the same way as Adam, from the dust of the earth, thus asserting her equal status. However, when Adam demanded that she lie beneath him during intercourse, Lilith refused, proclaiming the now famous line, "I will not lie below." This simple yet powerful statement encapsulates Lilith's rebellion against patriarchal norms and her demand for equal status. "Why must I lie beneath you?" she asked. "Am I not also made of dust?" This defiant question challenges the very foundation of the divinely ordained hierarchy, asserting that women are not inherently subordinate to men. But what if this demand for equality was not simply a matter of personal preference, but a reflection of a deeper spiritual principle? What if Lilith was embodying a divine feminine energy that refused to be suppressed or diminished? Lilith's words represent a seismic challenge to patriarchal norms and a resounding demand for equal status. Her refusal to submit to Adam's authority is not simply an act of disobedience, but a declaration of independence, a rejection of the imposed hierarchy that sought to define her existence. God, in response to Lilith's defiance, punished her, decreeing that her offspring would die and that she would become a threat to human infants. This punishment, seemingly disproportionate to her crime, serves to reinforce the patriarchal message. Female defiance will not be tolerated. But consider this: what if Lilith's demonization was not a divine decree, but a human construct, a way to control and suppress female sexuality and independence? The etymology of Lilith's name further illuminates her complex symbolism. Derived from the Hebrew word Layla, meaning night, Lilith is often associated with darkness, the untamed aspects of nature, and the hidden realms of the unconscious. She is also connected to the screech owl, a nocturnal bird often associated with wisdom, magic, and the ability to see in the dark. This connection to the night and the owl reinforces Lilith's association with hidden knowledge and the mysteries of the feminine. She is also called a night monster. Is it possible that the ancient Israelites, in demonizing Lilith, were also demonizing the very aspects of the feminine that they sought to control? Intuition, independence, and the ability to see beyond the limitations of the rational mind. In essence, Lilith's demonization in Jewish folklore serves as a cautionary tale about the perceived dangers of female defiance and the importance of submission to divine authority. Her story, transmitted through generations, reinforced patriarchal norms and served to suppress alternative perspectives on creation, gender roles, and the very nature of divinity. But we're just scratching the surface. What we'll discover next is even more shocking. Could Lilith's story have been deliberately twisted to obscure her true nature and purpose? What role does she play in the Kabbalah, and how does her story connect to the ancient mysteries of the Qliphoth? In essence, Lilith's demonization in Jewish folklore serves as a cautionary tale about the perceived dangers of female defiance and the importance of submission to divine authority. Her story, transmitted through generations, reinforced patriarchal norms and served to suppress alternative perspectives on creation, gender roles, and the very nature of divinity. But we're just scratching the surface. What we'll discover next is even more shocking. Could Lilith's story have been deliberately twisted to obscure her true nature and purpose? What role does she play in the Kabbalah, and how does her story connect to the ancient mysteries of the Qliphoth? In Kabbalah, Lilith isn't merely a demon. She is a powerful force residing within the Qliphoth, the shadow side of the Tree of Life. To truly understand Lilith's Kabbalistic significance, we must first grapple with the complex concept of the Qliphoth themselves. Often mistranslated as simply evil, the Qliphoth are, in reality, the unbalanced forces, the chaotic energies that exist alongside the Sephirot on the Tree of Life. Think of them as the unformed potential, the raw material from which creation is shaped. They are the shadow cast by the divine light, the necessary darkness that allows us to perceive the light itself. Are these Qlipothic forces truly malevolent, or do they simply represent the aspects of existence that we, in our limited human perception, deem undesirable or threatening? The Qliphoth are not simply evil. They represent unbalanced forces, necessary for growth and evolution, mirroring the challenges and temptations within the human psyche. Within this Kabbalistic framework, Lilith reigns as a queen, a powerful figure associated with specific culopathic realms, most notably Gamaliel, the obscene, and Lilith, the night. Gamaliel embodies the realm of chaotic, unrestrained sexuality, the primal urges and desires that can both create and destroy. Lilith, as the embodiment of the night, represents the darkness, the mystery, and the hidden aspects of the self. The night is the realm of dreams, of intuition, and of the subconscious. But it is also a place of danger, where hidden fears and repressed desires can surface. Is Lilith, then, a guide through these treacherous realms, or a temptress leading us astray? Working with Lilith's energy within the Kabbalistic framework can lead to confronting repressed desires, fears, and aspects of the self, ultimately leading to greater wholeness. Imagine Lilith as a gatekeeper, guarding the entrance to your own shadow self. She challenges you to confront the aspects of yourself that you have disowned, the emotions you have suppressed, and the desires you have denied. This is not a path for the faint of heart, for it requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face your own darkness. But for those who dare to embark on this journey, the rewards can be profound. By integrating these shadow aspects, you can become more whole, more authentic, and more powerful. However, navigating the culipath requires a strong ethical compass and a commitment to personal integrity, as these realms can be both transformative and potentially destabilizing. The energies of the culipath are raw and untamed, and they can easily overwhelm those who are not prepared. It is essential to approach this work with respect, discernment, and a clear understanding of your own motivations. Engaging with these forces without proper guidance or preparation can lead to psychological imbalance, emotional distress, and even spiritual harm. One must always remember that the path of shadow work is not a shortcut to enlightenment, but a challenging and potentially dangerous journey that requires careful consideration and a steadfast commitment to ethical principles. What safeguards, then, can we put in place to ensure that we navigate these treacherous realms safely and responsibly? Having explored Lilith's role within the Kabbalistic culipath, let's turn to another esoteric tradition, Gnosticism, and examine further layers of symbolic interpretation. Some scholars propose that Lilith can be viewed as a parallel to the Gnostic Sophia, a divine emanation that fell from grace and seeks reunification with the Godhead. To understand this connection, we must delve into the heart of Gnostic cosmology, a complex and often paradoxical system of thought that challenges conventional notions of God, creation, and the nature of reality. Within this framework, Sophia, whose name means wisdom, represents the divine feminine principle, the source of all creation and the embodiment of divine knowledge. But what happens when this divine wisdom is fractured, distorted, or separated from its source? Sophia's fall represents the separation of the divine feminine from the masculine principle, leading to a fractured reality and a longing for reintegration. In Gnostic myth, Sophia, in her eagerness to create, acted without the consent of the divine masculine, resulting in the birth of a flawed and imperfect creation. This act of independent creation led to her fall from grace, her fragmentation into countless sparks of divine light trapped within the material world. The Gnostic quest, then, is to gather these scattered fragments of Sophia, to heal the rift between the divine feminine and masculine, and to restore wholeness to the cosmos. If Sophia represents the pure, unmanifested potential of the divine feminine, what role does Lilith play in this cosmic drama? Lilith, as a shadow Sophia, embodies the raw, primal aspects of the feminine that have been suppressed or demonized by patriarchal religious systems. She represents the untamed, unapologetic power of female sexuality, the fierce independence of the female spirit, and the deep connection to the earth and its cycles. Where Sophia seeks reunification with the divine, Lilith embraces her separation, reveling in her autonomy and challenging the established order. Some Gnostic interpretations even suggest that Lilith was deliberately cast out by the demiurge, the flawed creator god, for refusing to conform to his limited vision of reality. Could Lilith, then, be seen as a rebel against a false god, a champion of true divine feminine power? Consider also the concept of the sacra familia, a term used in some esoteric traditions to describe the divine family unit. In this context, Lilith and Eve can be seen as representations of the same feminine essence, but in different guises. Eve, created from Adam's rib, represents the domesticated, subservient feminine, while Lilith, created independently, embodies the wild, untamed feminine. They are two sides of the same coin, two aspects of the divine feminine that have been separated and polarized. Just as Lucifer and Ahriman are considered to be representations of the same entity, light and darkness, so too can Lilith and Eve. Lilith's refusal to submit can be seen as a rejection of a patriarchal God who seeks to dominate and control, a yearning for a more balanced and holistic divine reality. In this light, her rebellion is not an act of defiance against God, but a rejection of a limited or distorted perception of God. She seeks a divine reality that embraces both the masculine and feminine principles, that values both order and chaos, and that recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of all beings. Her story, then, becomes a call for a more inclusive and compassionate spirituality, one that celebrates the diversity of human experience and challenges the oppressive structures that seek to limit our potential. But is this a dangerous path, one that leads to spiritual anarchy, or a necessary step towards a more enlightened future? While Kabbalah focuses on the Kulipath as unbalanced forces, Gnosticism emphasizes the separation of the divine feminine, both offering unique perspectives on Lilith's nature and significance. These two traditions, though distinct in their origins and cosmology, both offer valuable insights into the complex symbolism of Lilith. Kabbalah illuminates her role as a force of primal energy and shadow, while Gnosticism highlights her connection to the divine feminine and her rebellion against a flawed creator god. By examining these different perspectives, we can gain a more complete understanding of Lilith's multifaceted nature and her enduring relevance to contemporary spiritual seekers. But why, then, was this powerful and complex figure relegated to the margins of mainstream religious narratives? As we see symbolic interpretations of Lilith, let's consider the historical context surrounding her demonization and erasure from mainstream religious narratives, and why society would fear her independence. Lilith's story was suppressed due to its challenge to patriarchal norms, its association with female sexuality, and its potential to undermine established religious authority. Throughout history, powerful women who challenged societal norms have often been demonized or marginalized, their stories distorted to reinforce patriarchal structures. Consider the fate of Joan of Arc, branded a heretic and burned at the stake for her defiance of societal expectations, or Mary Magdalene, whose role as a close disciple of Jesus was downplayed and distorted to portray her as a repentant prostitute. Are these isolated incidents, or do they reflect a broader pattern of silencing female voices and suppressing alternative narratives? By portraying Lilith as a monstrous figure who threatens infants and seduces men, religious authorities sought to instill fear of female independence and enforce submission to male authority. The image of Lilith as a child-snatching demon served to reinforce the idea that women were primarily responsible for childcare, and that any deviation from this role was a threat to the family and the social order. Her portrayal as a seductive succubus, preying on men in their sleep, reinforced anxieties surrounding female sexuality and the perceived dangers of female desire. In essence, Lilith's demonization served as a tool to control and suppress female agency, ensuring that women remained firmly within the confines of patriarchal control. Lilith's story may have been suppressed by religious leaders who sought to consolidate their power and control over the interpretation of Scripture. By marginalizing alternative creation narratives, such as the one presented in the alphabet of Ben Sira, religious authorities could maintain their monopoly on religious truth and suppress any challenges to their authority. The suppression of Lilith's story, then, can be seen as part of a broader effort to control the narrative of creation and to reinforce the patriarchal power structures that underpinned religious institutions. Were these acts of suppression deliberate and calculated, or were they simply the result of unconscious biases and deeply ingrained societal norms. Indeed, Lilith's association with infant mortality and nocturnal activities tapped into primal fears and anxieties surrounding the vulnerability of children and the dangers of the night. In a world where infant mortality rates were high and the mysteries of childbirth were poorly understood, Lilith became a convenient scapegoat for unexplained tragedies. Her association with the night, a time of darkness and uncertainty, further fueled anxieties surrounding the unknown and the uncontrollable. This fear of the unknown, combined with a deep-seated distrust of female power, created a fertile ground for Lilith's demonization. Consider the persecution of witches in Europe, the suppression of female mystics in Christianity, and the erasure of female voices from historical accounts, all reflect a pattern of silencing women who challenged established power structures. These historical examples serve as a stark reminder of the lengths to which societies will go to suppress female agency and maintain patriarchal control. Lilith's story, then, is not simply an isolated myth, but a reflection of a broader historical trend of demonizing and marginalizing powerful women who dared to challenge the status quo. But what if, by understanding the forces that led to Lilith's suppression, we can begin to reclaim her story and to restore her to her rightful place in the pantheon of human experience? Now that we've explored the suppression of Lilith, let's discuss how we can reclaim the Lilith archetype for shadow work and female empowerment. But is it safe to do so? Reclaiming Lilith is not about embracing evil, but about integrating those suppressed aspects of ourselves that society has deemed unacceptable, a crucial step towards personal wholeness and empowerment. Just as a tree needs its roots, even those hidden beneath the soil, so too do we need to acknowledge and integrate our shadow selves to reach our full potential. This is a journey from demonization to self-acceptance, a shift in perspective that empowers us to rewrite our own narratives and to challenge the limiting beliefs that have held us captive. But how do we navigate this complex terrain, and what tools can we use to safely explore the depths of our own psyches? At the heart of this process lies the concept of shadow work, a term coined by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung to describe the exploration of our unconscious desires, fears, and repressed emotions. Think of the shadow self as the hidden room in your psyche, the place where you have locked away all the parts of yourself that you deem undesirable or unacceptable. Lilith, in this context, embodies the shadow archetype, representing the repressed feminine within men and the repressed masculine within women. She is the wild, untamed aspect of our nature that we have been taught to fear and to suppress. But by acknowledging and integrating these shadow aspects, we can achieve psychological balance, greater self-awareness, and a more authentic sense of self. Could Lilith, then, be the key to unlocking our hidden potential, the catalyst for our own personal transformation? Furthermore, female empowerment, in this context, goes beyond mere social recognition. It's about reclaiming autonomy, self-expression, and challenging societal norms that limit female potential. Lilith's rebellion against Adam can be seen as a symbolic act of defiance against patriarchal structures, a refusal to be defined or controlled by external forces. Her story resonates with the broader feminist movement and the ongoing fight for gender equality, inspiring women to embrace their sexuality, independence, and inner strength. She is the embodiment of the woman who refuses to be silenced, the woman who dares to speak her truth, and the woman who reclaims her power. How, then, can we practically work with the Lilith archetype to unlock these transformative energies and to challenge the limitations that society imposes upon us? While direct interaction with any archetype is a matter of personal choice and discernment, here are some symbolic methods for connecting with Lilith for exploration and self-discovery, always remembering that safety and respect are paramount. Working with the Lilith archetype should be approached as a symbolic exploration of the shadow self, not as literal demonolatry. Before embarking on this journey, it's essential to set clear boundaries, establish firm intentions, and maintain a critical perspective. Remember that you are working with a powerful archetype, a force that can easily overwhelm those who are not prepared. What precautions, then, should we take to ensure that our exploration remains safe, ethical, and transformative. Consider a simple meditation practice for connecting with Lilith, focusing on self-reflection, emotional release, and reclaiming personal power. Find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed and sit comfortably with your spine straight. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, allowing yourself to relax and to center yourself in the present moment. Visualize Lilith as a powerful, independent figure, perhaps standing before you or seated on a throne, and ask her what aspects of yourself you have been suppressing or denying. What fears, desires, or emotions have you locked away in the hidden room of your psyche? As you breathe, imagine Lilith extending her hand to you, offering to guide you through the darkness. What limiting beliefs have held you back from embracing your true potential? You might also outline a symbolic ritual for honoring Lilith, emphasizing self-acceptance, reclaiming suppressed desires, and breaking free from limiting beliefs. Create an altar with symbols associated with Lilith, such as black candles, obsidian stones, and images of the night. Write down your fears and desires on separate pieces of paper, then burn them in the flame of the black candle as an act of releasing limitations and embracing your true self. As the smoke rises, visualize yourself transforming, shedding the old skin of societal expectations and emerging as your authentic self. What new possibilities open up to you as you embrace your individuality and reclaim your power? Creative expression can also be a powerful tool for channeling Lilith's energy, exploring shadow aspects, and expressing inner truths. Write a poem, song, or story from Lilith's perspective, giving voice to her experiences, emotions, and desires. What would she say to the world? What lessons would she share? Create artwork that represents your shadow self, embracing its darkness, complexity, and potential for transformation. Is it a fearsome beast, a wounded child, or a hidden goddess? Dance to music that evokes the energy of Lilith, allowing your body to move freely and to express the emotions that have been suppressed. What hidden truths can your body reveal? Throughout this process, journaling and self-reflection are essential for tracking insights, emotional shifts, and personal growth. Use shadow work journal prompts, such as, what aspects of myself do I fear or dislike? What desires have I suppressed? How can I embrace my individuality and break free from societal expectations? Reflect on how society has tried to define you, and then ask yourself, how do I define myself? What are my values, my beliefs, and my aspirations? By understanding how society has tried to shape us, we can begin to reclaim our own narratives and to define ourselves on our own terms. What then does it truly mean to be free? To further illustrate the transformative potential of working with the Lilith archetype, let's examine how she has been portrayed in art, literature, and personal narratives. Consider John Collier's famous painting Lilith, which depicts her as a seductive and powerful figure, adorned with snakes and exuding an aura of mystery. The use of dark colors, the sensual pose, and the subtle suggestion of danger all contribute to an image that challenges traditional notions of female beauty and innocence. How does Collier's depiction of Lilith compare to the more demonized images of her found in religious texts? What does this tell us about the evolving perception of female power? Lilith's role in literature is equally compelling, from Robert Graves' poem, Lilith, which explores themes of female empowerment and rebellion, to her appearances in contemporary novels as a symbol of female rage and independence. In Graves' poem, Lilith is not a monster to be feared, but a force of nature to be reckoned with, a woman who refuses to be tamed or controlled. How does this portrayal challenge the patriarchal norms that have dominated Western literature for centuries? What other literary examples can we find that celebrate female defiance and the reclaiming of marginalized voices? Countless individuals have also used Lilith's symbolism to overcome personal challenges, integrate shadow aspects, and embrace their authentic selves. One woman, who struggled with self-acceptance and societal pressures, used Lilith's story to embrace her sexuality and challenge traditional expectations, leading to greater self-love and confidence. Another artist channeled Lilith's energy to express repressed anger and pain through their artwork, leading to emotional release and personal transformation. These are just a few examples of the transformative potential of working with the Lilith archetype. But it is crucial to remember the importance of respecting her power, setting boundaries, and engaging with her symbolism in a responsible and ethical manner. Remember that working with any archetype requires self-awareness, discernment, and a commitment to personal growth and well-being. What steps can we take to ensure that we approach this work with the respect and intention it deserves? Lilith is not merely a demon or a goddess. She is a powerful symbol that can help us confront our deepest fears, reclaim our authentic selves, and challenge the limitations that society imposes upon us. Her story, though suppressed and distorted, continues to resonate with those who seek to challenge authority, embrace their individuality, and reclaim their power. This journey of shadow work, self-acceptance, and female empowerment should be undertaken in a way that promotes health and wholeness. However, the ethical considerations of working with the Lilith archetype cannot be overstated. We must approach this work with balance, discernment, and respect, always mindful of the potential for both transformation and destabilization. But what does it mean that Lilith's children remain shrouded in mystery? What dark secrets lie hidden within the tales of Lilith's children, those spectral offspring that haunt the edges of folklore and esoteric tradition? Throughout history and across cultures, these enigmatic entities have been portrayed as sources of fear and fascination, their origins shrouded in mystery and their purpose often misunderstood. What, then, are the origins of the stories about Lilith's children, and why do they evoke such strong emotions, even to this day? While popular imagination often paints a simple picture of Lilith's children as monstrous demons preying on human infants, the reality is far more nuanced. Ancient texts and traditions offer limited and often contradictory information about these offspring, leaving much room for interpretation and speculation. The Bible, for instance, remains silent on the matter, forcing us to rely on folklore and esoteric sources for answers. Even within these sources, descriptions of Lilith's children vary wildly, ranging from monstrous demons to misunderstood spirits, each carrying a distinct symbolic weight. But what if these spectral children represent something far more profound than mere demonic entities? What if they hold a key to understanding not only Lilith herself, but also the hidden depths of the human psyche? It is this question, and the myriad others it will lead us to, that we will now endeavor to unpack. Having set the stage, the next question emerges. Who are the supposed children of Lilith, and what do they truly represent beyond the fearsome image of demons that haunt the night? Within the complex tapestry of Kabbalah, Lilith's children find a unique and unsettling place, intrinsically linked to the Kulipoth, those shadowy realms that exist as the antithesis of the Sephirot on the Tree of Life. Lilith's offspring are not merely malevolent spirits. They are emanations of the Kulipothic realms, embodying the darker, more chaotic aspects of existence. The Lilim, female demons born of Lilith's encounters, and the Samalites, their male counterparts, represent forces of imbalance and disruption. But, and this is where our understanding can truly deepen, these demonic entities are not simply embodiments of evil. Rather, they represent necessary forces for growth and transformation, mirroring the disruptive nature of Lilith herself. Confronting these chaotic forces, grappling with the shadows they cast, can lead to a deeper understanding of the self and the universe. Chaos, after all, is not merely destruction. It is the crucible of creativity, the spark of innovation, and the breaking down of old structures to make way for the new. What then appears monstrous may actually be a catalyst for growth. And in that vein, Lilith's children serve as tempters and challengers, pushing us to confront our limitations and to embrace our full potential, even those aspects we would rather keep hidden. Indeed, Lilith's children can be seen as catalysts for shadow work, forcing individuals to confront their repressed desires and fears, those aspects of the self that we often disown or deny. This process, though challenging, is essential for personal and spiritual growth. By integrating these shadow aspects, we can achieve a more complete and authentic sense of self. This concept echoes the initiatory journey, where facing challenges and overcoming obstacles leads to spiritual growth and self-realization. Just as the alchemist seeks to transform base metals into gold, so too can we transform our shadow selves into sources of strength and wisdom. But are the incubi and succubi often attributed to Lilith, simply instruments of temptation, or do they hold a more profound symbolic meaning? These figures can be interpreted as representations of the shadow lover, the male and female archetypes that embody our deepest desires and fears. It is essential to emphasize, however, that the Kabbalistic interpretation of Lilith's children is complex and nuanced, requiring careful study and discernment. The Qlipoth are not to be approached lightly, and working with these energies requires a strong ethical foundation and a deep understanding of the potential risks involved. Remember, we are exploring the edges of consciousness, venturing into realms where the lines between good and evil, light and darkness, become blurred. But having examined the Kabbalistic view, we must ask ourselves, are the children of Lilith purely destructive, or is there a more empowering interpretation, a way to reclaim their symbolism and to integrate their energies into our own lives? Challenging the traditional interpretation of Lilith as a monstrous mother allows us to reframe her as a symbol of female empowerment and independence. Is it possible that Lilith's rejection of Adam represents a refusal to be defined solely by her role as a mother or wife, a conscious choice to assert her autonomy and self-determination? When we contrast the demonized portrayal of Lilith with more positive interpretations of motherhood, such as nurturing, creativity, and strength, we begin to see the patriarchal biases that have shaped her narrative. In this light, Lilith's children may represent her legacy of rebellion and her influence on those who challenge societal norms. Perhaps Lilith's children are not literal offspring, but rather symbolic representations of those who embrace her spirit of independence and defiance, a testament to the enduring power of female agency. Rather than seeing Lilith as a monstrous mother, we can view her as the mother of witches, harlots, and other societal outcasts, reclaiming the negative connotations and transforming them into symbols of empowerment. Historically, those who defy societal norms have often been demonized and marginalized. Lilith, in this context, becomes a symbol of solidarity with these outcasts, a reminder that true strength lies in embracing our individuality and rejecting conformity. Perhaps Lilith's motherhood is an act of defiance against a patriarchal god who sought to control female reproduction and limit female agency. The power to create life outside the confines of traditional marriage, representing a challenge to divine authority and a reclaiming of female power. Indeed, the symbolic meaning of Lilith's children can be seen as representations of untamed female sexuality, creativity, and power, aspects of the feminine that have been demonized by patriarchal societies in an attempt to control female bodies and minds. By reclaiming this symbolism, we can celebrate female strength, independence, and the right to self-determination. In this context, we can start to see that reclaiming Lilith's name for the divine feminine might lead to some seriously interesting new perspectives. But if Lilith has this more empowering aspect, and given her presence in multiple mythologies and occult traditions, are there other Lilith archetypes we can use for further symbolic exploration? Indeed, there may be more than one Lilith archetype, each reflecting different aspects of her personality and symbolism across cultures and traditions. But is there a single, definitive Lilith, or are there multiple Lilith archetypes that reflect different aspects of the feminine, each offering unique insights and opportunities for personal growth? Briefly touching on different cultural and religious interpretations of Lilith, highlighting variations in her appearance, powers, and motivations, is it possible to synthesize these different aspects? Indeed, we can explore the concept of Lilith as the Dark Mother, embodying the destructive and transformative aspects of the feminine, representing the shadow side of motherhood, encompassing themes of death, rebirth, and the cyclical nature of life. In this form, Lilith is akin to Kali and Hecate, goddesses who embody both the life-giving and life-taking aspects of the feminine. Then we have the archetype of Lilith as the independent woman, emphasizing her autonomy, self-reliance, and rejection of societal expectations, a representation of the freedom to choose one's own path, regardless of societal pressures or expectations. In this form, Lilith resonates with modern feminist ideals and the ongoing struggle for gender equality. Finally, there's Lilith as the seductress, embodying the power of female sexuality and its ability to both entice and destroy. This archetype represents the allure of the forbidden, the power of desire, and the potential for both pleasure and pain. However, rather than demonizing female sexuality, we can recognize it as a natural and powerful force that should be celebrated rather than feared. By analyzing each archetype in terms of Jungian shadow elements, we can gain a deeper understanding of the complexities of the feminine psyche. Which Lilith archetype resonates most with you? This is a question for each of us to consider. Remember, the Lilith archetype is a complex and multifaceted symbol that can be interpreted in many different ways, and that the journey into one's own subconscious is the ultimate method of finding truth, though a guide is often helpful. Now that we've explored Lilith and her children, how can we apply her story to personal betterment and spiritual growth? And what practical steps can we take to integrate her energies into our lives? As we draw our exploration of Lilith to a close, let us reflect upon the intricate tapestry of her story, a narrative woven with threads of rebellion, empowerment, and hidden knowledge, recognizing that there are no simple answers when delving into the depths of ancient myth and esoteric traditions. Lilith's saga is not a mere historical footnote. It's a multifaceted lens through which we can examine the complexities of power, gender, and the enduring human quest for autonomy. What enduring relevance does Lilith's story hold for us today, and how can we apply the insights we've gained to our own lives? Throughout our exploration, we've seen how Lilith's story embodies the struggle for equality, the dangers of unchecked power, and the critical importance of questioning established norms and challenging patriarchal structures. These seemingly disparate elements converge to reveal a powerful narrative about the suppression of female agency, the demonization of the other, and the reclaiming of marginalized voices. The themes of rebellion, empowerment, and hidden knowledge are not isolated incidents within Lilith's story. Rather, they are interconnected aspects of a larger struggle for justice, equality, and the recognition of the divine feminine, mirroring similar battles that continue to unfold in our own era. As we recognize these threads, we begin to appreciate the subtle echoes of her battles throughout history. Returning to the initial question of whether Lilith was justified in her rebellion, we can now see that there is no easy answer, no simple yes or no. Instead, Lilith's actions must be understood within the context of her time, her culture, and her own personal experiences, acknowledging the varying perspectives and interpretations that have shaped her narrative throughout history. Her rejection of Adam's dominance can be interpreted as a quest for equality, a refusal to be subjugated, and a bold assertion of her own self-worth. Her story forces us to confront our own biases and to question the narratives that have been used to justify oppression and inequality, allowing us to look at history through a different lens. Similarly, the question of Lilith's children, often demonized as monstrous beings, can be reinterpreted as representations of female agency, creative power, and the untamed aspects of the feminine. As for the question of whether there is more than one Lilith archetype, it is clear that Lilith exists as a multifaceted figure, a complex symbol that has been shaped by different cultures and traditions, each reflecting different aspects of her personality and symbolism. From the Dark Mother, to the independent woman, to the seductress, each archetype offers unique insights into the complexities of the feminine psyche and the ongoing struggle for female empowerment. Embracing these different aspects allows us to move beyond simplistic judgments and to appreciate the full spectrum of human experience, recognizing that true understanding lies in embracing complexity and nuance. Can we see that within ourselves? Lilith's story transcends the boundaries of ancient myth and speaks directly to contemporary issues of social justice, equality, and the ongoing struggle for human rights. Her rebellious spirit can inspire individuals to challenge oppressive systems, embrace their individuality, and stand up for what they believe in, recognizing that true change requires courage, conviction, and a willingness to question the status quo. Her narrative reminds us that the fight for equality is far from over and that we must continue to challenge patriarchal structures, to amplify marginalized voices, and to create a more just and equitable world for all, urging us to critically examine the power structures in our own lives. How can we become more conscious of the subtle ways that power operates in our relationships, our communities, and our societies, recognizing that true liberation requires both individual and collective action? Through this journey, we have gained a deeper understanding of Lilith's true origins, her symbolic significance, and the reasons for her erasure from Scripture, empowering us to challenge conventional understanding, embrace our authentic selves, and create a more just and equitable world. This understanding allows us to see Lilith not as a monster to be feared, but as a symbol of female strength, independence, and the courage to defy oppression, allowing us to see the shadows in a new light. With this knowledge, you are now empowered to challenge the status quo, embrace your authentic self, and create a more just and equitable world. The potential for growth and understanding is limitless. Lilith's legacy is not one of darkness and despair, but of rebellion, empowerment, and the enduring power of myth to challenge our assumptions and inspire us to create a better future, urging us to question authority and embrace our individuality. We have definitively shown that Lilith's story is not simply a footnote in religious history, but a powerful symbol of rebellion, empowerment, and the ongoing struggle for justice and equality. And so it is. If you found this exploration enlightening, manifest your engagement by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and turning on the notification bell. Share your thoughts and theories about Lilith's origins and meaning in the comments below, and for a deeper dive, check out the alphabet of Ben Sira, with a link in the description below. In closing, we might ask, how can Lilith be seen as a catalyst for individual and collective change, inspiring a new generation to question authority, embrace individuality, and create a more equitable world? And what are the possible connections between Lilith and Eve, and why might their stories be more intertwined than we ever imagined? Perhaps our next exploration should focus on the mother of mankind herself. Until next time, fellow mystics, continue to seek the light and fan the flame.